right. So I see Dan Hanford is in the building. Now, Dan, you know I got a video for you this time. You didn't see the one before you, so you're going to be in for a treat on this one.
All right, let's see it.
Dan gave me my first conference speaking opportunity, and I'm so grateful to have him come share with you guys. This guy's built just a massive, we talk about vanity metrics. Dan has all the vanity metrics. He's got a top downloaded podcast. He's got a huge Facebook group with like over 20,000 people in it. And he's doing huge deals. Did you guys close the one in Orlando already? Or is it
We
close?
did. We did. Yep.
$90 million deal down in Orlando in the middle of COVID, along with all the other ones they've done. So Dan's going to talk about building a massive marketing machine to raise capital. And so you'll hear from him after this amazing video.
That was awesome. Thank you so much for that introduction, Jerome. I even still have the print or the picture frame from the last one of these that we did together, and my family points to it all the time and gets a little chuckle out of it. But appreciate that introduction. I want to tell you just a little bit about something that happened the last couple of days that'll hopefully help you. And it's something that a lot of people, it's a question that a lot of people ask. And I'm gonna dive into that a little bit, which will help you from a marketing perspective and being able to raise a bunch of capital, making sure that you're asking the right questions. And before I do that, for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Dan Hanford. I'm one of the managing partners of a group called PassiveInvesting.com. I won't go into too much detail about myself, but you can go to PassiveInvesting.com and click on the Meet the Team button, and you'll see my picture there. And you can click on that. And there's also a video that we did to share with you a little bit more about my background, so we don't take too much time here. So you can go ahead and do that if you would like after my session. And you can also, well, I was going to change this a little bit here and talk a little bit about my family. So I actually live here in Columbia, South Carolina, with my 4 children and my beautiful wife and our standard poodle Bella. And Bella's actually sitting over there, laying down over there. So if somebody rings the doorbell or somebody comes in, you'll probably hear her barking. But that's a little bit about me. But if you have some questions for me, please put them into the chat box. I want to make sure this is as valuable to you as possible. But this past week, one of the things that I did is we actually hosted our very first in-person, it was as a workshop. It's called the Raising Capital Workshop. We had 30 people here right here in Columbia, South Carolina, that came down to learn some of the things that we're doing. And we spent a couple of days, 2 days doing that. Had a great time. One of the last sessions that I did in this workshop, somebody raised their hand, and I hope they're not on here, but if they are, you know who you are. But they raised their hand and they asked a question, and they said, and they basically said, Dan, what's the number one thing that you do that we should be implementing right now to get the most investors or the most number of leads for investors into our fold or around our fence or to our website, right, to fill out those forms and put them into the first part of the funnel. And it was a longer question than that, but that's basically the gist of the question is what's the number one thing you do? And I looked at him in front of everybody else, and I said, well, it's actually a stupid question. And of course, everybody laughed or whatever. And I said, now, I'm not saying that I'm not going to answer your question, but it's a stupid question. And I'm going to tell you why it's a stupid question, right? And there's a reason why when John was on, I asked the question that I did, because it's part of the reason why you need to, part of my session here is the question that I asked John wasn't what's the number one thing you do to promote your podcast? That's not what I asked him. I said, what are you doing to promote your podcast? Right? Because I want to know what are all the different things that he's doing to promote his podcast. Because I know as a marketer and as a business person that there is never a magic bullet or a silver bullet, if you will, where you do one thing and it brings you the majority of your leads or the majority of your customers. You have to have a multimodal approach to your marketing. And I came up with this idea and thought about this, and I didn't come up with it, but it had an illustration that came up to me um, a couple years ago, several years ago now, where it helped me solidify this. And one of the problems that you see in business, and not just multifamily businesses or real estate or self storage or whatever, it's specific to um just small businesses in general, right? And I'm going to share my whiteboard here to see if this thing actually. Nope, wrong screen there. I'm going to share this whiteboard here just so you can kind of see this illustration. So what happens a lot of times is we in small business, we have this kind of sine wave that actually occurs. So let me see if I can get this thing to let me draw on it. Let's see if it'll let me draw. I don't know. It does. If it does. Um, let's see. Sticky notes, shapes, connection lines. There we go. Pen. All right. So you usually have this kind of sine wave like this is what you usually see in a business when it comes to marketing. And what happens is you start the business, and what happens is you spend a lot of time and energy and effort and money to promote, right? And to market and to get new customers. And then in our situation, to get new investors, right? You're doing lots of different things. And you spend that money and you get a bunch of leads and you have this huge amount of leads come in and you have this you have lots of money coming in. And then we get into this syndrome that I call the fat cat syndrome. Call it FCS for short, if you will, fat cat syndrome. And fat cat syndrome is really when you get so kind of fat and happy and you have so much revenue coming in that you're like, you kind of neglect the marketing and just stop spending money on it. And then your revenue starts to go down and you start to go down into this little valley right here. And then you start to be in what I call the oh crap mode, right? And when you're in this oh crap mode, there's a lot of stress. This is a lot of times where family problems come into play, and friends, and there's lots of different issues with your employees and things like that, because there's a lot of stress down here when you're actually losing money. Okay. And so you freak out and you're like, I got to spend more money on marketing and advertising. And so you spend that more money in marketing and advertising. And this process occurs all the way over time, because what a lot of people do is instead of over here thinking about what are the, you know, 10 different ways that I can promote and market myself, they try to figure out what's the number one thing that I can do. And what happens is that number one thing will bring you leads for a while, but over time it'll stop and it'll not bring you leads. And then it keeps on going, and then you'll spend that time and energy effort to try to find that next silver bullet. But here's the thing is if you actually put together these kind of 5, 10, 15, 20 different opportunities to be able to promote yourself and to promote your business and to promote your syndication business, to be able to raise more capital, or even if you're doing JV partners, whatever, however else you're doing it, you now create this consistent graph like this, where instead of having all these kind of ups and downs, you have this consistency in the number of leads that are coming in. And I'll give you an example here. So we actually use a software called Active Campaign, and I'm pulling it up here right now. And on our dashboard, I'm not going to show it to you because I have some other stuff on there, but I'm pulling it up right now, and it says as of 8/20/2021. Oh, wait, no, not as of. In the last 30 days, which is since August 20th, 2021, we have received 188 new investor leads into our website. People have gone to the website, they've gone to that top right hand corner of the screen, and they've filled out their information, right? And when we first got started, that's not how it was. We would get maybe 2 or 3 a month, right? That's how when we first got started. And then it just built up over time and over the years. And now we have this consistency because whatever we're putting into place for marketing and our content strategy, we're staying consistent with it. And I think, even with what John said, with the podcast, I've been on podcasts before, and I know John and other people have as well. Even Jerome has probably done this too. Is you've been on a podcast, you've spent that time, energy, and effort. They've done the recording, they put it out, and then like a couple months later, you go to find it and it's gone because the person just like gave up or they lost. They got rid of the podcast, right? And it's definitely frustrating when that happens. When you actually have um, whenever you actually have content that you're doing, you must stay consistent with it. And so the big takeaway that you should have from this today is number one, making sure that you are asking the right questions. So when you go to conferences, and whether it be virtual like this one or in-person conferences, it shouldn't be what's the one thing that brings you the most investors. It should be tell me everything that you're doing to promote, right? And this can also go outside of just your syndication business. This can be going to a conference and saying, hey, what are you doing to promote your apartment complex to be able to get new leases signed each month, right? So it's not just the question you should ask for this. This is overlapping to multiple different areas in this kind of a business, because that's one of the nice things and the kind of challenging things about the syndication business is we really have two customer sets, right? We have the investors, which are a set of customers from the syndication side, but then we're also buying a business, the apartment complex, that has people and also has customers, and those customers are the residents. And we have to make sure we take care of both of them and learn how to actually attract and market for both of them as well, right? But you definitely have to realize that you got to be consistent with whatever you're doing. Now, the next question might be, well, what should I start with, right? What should I start with? And my recommendation as far as kind of the starting point for you, what should be that kind of first thing that you should do is whatever you love to do, right? I know that might sound kind of like, well, what do I love to do? Well, hopefully you know what you love to do. I don't know what you love to do, but a lot of times it takes the action of you actually going out and just doing stuff to see if you like it or not, right? But there's a lot of things that I do to promote our passiveinvesting.com business and brand that I just don't like to do. I mean, I do them because I know it'll produce leads. I can't tell you how many times I talk to our staff about not wanting to do our weekly webinars anymore, right? It's one of those things where I enjoy doing them, but then again, I don't enjoy doing them because it takes time away. It takes my time away, right? And so, but I know the results. I know that the results of that are proven, and the things that we are doing and allowing us to close really large deals. I mean, this year alone, we've raised just over $102 million, and we have two other assets that are one's about to be under contract, one's under contract right now, and it'll actually allow us to get over to about 156 million in equity raised just this year alone. And the first year we got started, we only raised $4 million. But I'll tell you, that 4 million was the hardest 4 million I ever raised. I mean, one of the very first things that I did when I got started is I partnered with another group, kind of build my track record, build my credibility, which is a great idea and great things to do, a great thing to do. And I basically said, hey, I'll raise $500,000 for you for the deal, right? And help out with some of the asset management and various things like that. But I I raised the 500,000, but 200,000 of it was my own money, right? So I would say that was the hardest 300,000 that I had ever raised, right? But that's where we started, was 4 million the first year, and then in 2019 we raised 32 million, and then in 2020 we raised around 61 million, somewhere around in there, and this year we're on track to crest 150 million, which is exciting, right? I mean, this is going to be about a $500 million in assets in this fourth year that we've been in business, and we've been able to kind of grow the team along with it. We now have about 19 people that work for us, that work as analysts and asset management and marketing, as well as on investor relations, and we're growing, right? We need to have more people to come to continue to support the growth that we have, so that we can sustain the growth and make sure we can protect the investments from our investors as well. And so we're truly building this business. And we're actually this year, we've got the three partners of our group, myself, Danny, and Brandon, have been writing a book about the business of apartment syndication and how to actually effectively run a business around apartment syndication. Because I truly believe that you have to treat it like a business, especially when you're taking on and attracting that much capital. And so it's not going to be out this year. It's actually going to probably be Q1 of next year when it'll actually be published and will be out for out. But it's something that's I'm very passionate about, because I do see a lot of people entering this space of syndication, and they do one or two deals, they go away, right? And it's because it's nothing that we do in these multifamily syndications is very hard, but there's just so many different things that it becomes complex, right? So it's not like anything is hard. It's just that when you put them all together, it makes a very complex process that you have to make sure that you're monitoring, and you put key people in place to make sure that you can monitor those investments. Because I still want to make sure that if I want to go on vacation for a month, I can, and I don't have to worry about investors not getting the returns they're expected, or the investors, losing money or whatever. We have a team built out that could continue to do that. But going back to the marketing side of things, making sure that you ask the right questions, and making sure that you just start with one thing, and don't try to perfect it, right? All of you probably, I mean, not all of you, but if you haven't heard of Whitney Sewell before, I know a lot of you probably have. Whitney actually has a podcast called The Syndication Show. And he actually, when he first got started, right before he even launched that podcast, he reached out to me, and he actually drove down to my office here in Columbia, South Carolina, from where he is in Virginia. And he sat down in my office, and we had a great conversation. And one of the biggest kind of blocks for him was trying to perfect the show before he launched it, right? And one of the key things I told him is just launch the podcast, right? And one of the biggest things and if you're gonna write anything down on what I say, this is something that you should write down. Version 1 is always better than version none. So start with something. Don't try to be perfect with it. And I'm guilty of this too. I like to have things like, I'm a very like OCD. I like things very particular. I'm a very detail oriented person when it comes to that. But I'm also the type of person that's like fire, aim, ready, right? I'm gonna go out there, just do something, because I know if I put it out there, I'll be able to perfect it along the way. And guess what? I can now have a version 2.0. So don't think that if you put out there, version 1, that you stop. You can still have version 2.0 or 3.0, right? But you got to get started. You got to put something out there and perfect it along the way, instead of trying to wait 6 months, a year to try to put something out there and get it together. But with the multimodal approach to marketing, what you want to do, you want to start with one thing. And the reason why I say you start with something that you love to do is because that's the thing you'll want to be consistent with. So if you like to talk, get on podcasts, start your own podcast. If you like to be on video, do YouTube channel, do kind of short clip videos for LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook. If you like to write, go write blog articles or just other articles for other people, or go on and write your book, write a book. And get yourself into whatever mode you like to do. If you like to do all of them, just start with one thing, and then build on one thing after another. And that's actually how we were able to build this brand, to be able to kind of be where we are today. So let me go ahead and open it up for some questions. So I'm going to go through this little list here. I haven't been following it too much. I'm going to go through here and see if there might be any questions. But if you have questions for me, feel free to type them in there. We got a few more minutes left here, and I'll try to answer as many of these questions as possible. But biggest thing is making sure that you don't start something and then you stop it, right? You want to make sure that you are consistent with whatever you are doing, so that people don't see the inconsistencies in what you are doing, because people will notice that. People will see that as well. Let's see. Will you tell the fishing line story that solidified the multimodal approach? Yes, I will. I will. So I actually was getting ready to talk about this, and I was going to run out a little bit of time, so I kind of cut it out. But I'll tell you this story. So, my wife and I took a trip to Sanibel Island, Florida. It's right outside of Fort Myers, Florida. If you've never been, write it down, put it on your bucket list. It's a beautiful area. We actually stayed at the South Seas Island Resort down there, and we stayed in one of their resort rooms or whatever, that where you could actually literally from the porch out back. It was a screened-in porch. You could jump into the Gulf of Mexico from the porch. It was beautiful. Well, right outside the porch, we were actually almost on the second floor, so we were kind of looking down. On right outside the porch was this pier, and it wasn't really like a long pier that you might think of. It was kind of a short pier, and that short pier, there were fishermen that would come along every almost every morning. So my wife and I every morning we get up, we have a cup of coffee, we go out there and just have we like to just talk in the morning together and just like just enjoy each other. And so we'll get a cup of coffee or maybe get something to read and just talk and read and stuff like that. And especially when we're on vacation like that, it definitely is very relaxing. And so every morning, for the first couple of days we were there, we'd see like one or two fishermen come up and they'd throw their fishing line out there, and they would, spend probably, 30, 45 minutes and move from one side of the pier to the other side of the pier and nothing. They wouldn't get anything, right? Not one fisherman caught anything those first couple of days that we were there. And then all of a sudden, out of the corner of one of the buildings, I see this person, this guy that looks like he's going to town to catch some fish. Man, he had the bait and the tackle and the vest and the hat and all the kind of lure and everything, and he was holding a wheelbarrow behind him, and he was carrying that wheelbarrow with him. And behind him was his wife reading a book, and she just wanted to spend some time with him while he was fishing. So she came in, and right beside the pier there was this bench, and so he came up and put the wheelbarrow behind the bench. She came around and sat on the bench, and the guy started getting the fishing rod. And so the first thing I noticed here is wait a minute, this guy isn't even setting up on the pier. This guy is actually setting up on a different location. So he's thinking outside the box, right? So he's thinking outside the box. He goes and he actually starts to put out his fishing rod around the bank. It's beside the pier. Casts the fishing rod out there, the line out there, puts it into the ground. And then he goes and gets another fishing rod and puts it in the ground. Does the same thing. And by the time he's done, he's got like 10 fishing rods that are sitting there in the ground. And all of a sudden, by the time he got the 10th one in, guess what started to happen? One of the first ones started to bite. So he ran over there, got that one, was reeling that fish in, and then the next one started to bite. He goes over there, reels that one in, and then another one, and another one. And he's like recruiting his wife. He's like, dear, I need some help, right? This is your team. Hey, I need some more teamwork, right? And so she dropped her book, came over there, started reeling the fish in. And it was a great kind of a picture for me to realize that that's the multimodal approach to marketing that we must have in our business. That we can't just put one line out there at a time, one line over here or one line over here. We have to have this multimodal approach to marketing to create some consistency in the number of customers and leads that are actually coming into our business, that allows us to be able to survive and that allows us to be able to thrive and not have to have the ebbs and flows of the ups and downs of the marketing process that a lot of times we get caught up into. All right, let's see. Let's see if there's other questions in here. What is your one thing you love to do? From a marketing perspective, I would say that I really kind of enjoy the podcast because I can do it on my own time and I can schedule it on the one day during the week that I do a lot of my phone calls, so I can control it a little bit more, right? And also, I like talking, I like learning. So my podcast is the Multifamily Investor Nation podcast. We also have one for the self-storage side called the Storage Investor Nation. And we only interview people who are actively closing deals in the current market. And so I get to learn a lot about what they're doing from a debt perspective, what they're doing from finding investors and raising the capital, and then from the due diligence side of things that are going wrong. What's the business plan? So there's a lot of things that I like about that. So that would probably be the one thing that I would say that one of the things that I like to do. And the last question I'll take here, and then I'll turn it over to you, Jerome, is from John. Good to see you on here, John. Great to have you. What marketing strategy surprised you with its effectiveness? I would say that the one, and it's not really, I'll tell you this, it's the multimodal approach to marketing. That's the strategy, right? But the thing that really surprised me and you don't a lot of times think about reputation as being a marketing strategy, but having a good, strong reputation in the industry and in the market can exponentially increase the number of people that come through. And the reason why I say that is that I didn't realize that the impact of that until we started getting investors that would go to our website, they'd fill out the form, we jump on a phone call with them, and they'd say, the reason why I decided that I wanted to invest with you or jump on a phone call with you is because I asked around to lots of different people, other syndicators, and they are telling me that they think you're a great operator, right? And some of them have invested and some have not. We do have a lot of well-known syndicators that actually invest with us because of course they can't invest with their own kind of self-directed IRA or 401k, so they can use that money to invest in other assets. But the reputation is key, and it is not just other syndicators that we have a good reputation with. It's other investors as well. And so, people go online and they post on blog forums or on blog forums, but the forums online, there's people that'll go out there and they'll talk, right? And it's to me, the reputation and maintaining that reputation is key. But I will tell you this: when it comes to maintaining your investors, we actually get what are called we actually get a lot of what I call investors from what I call donor syndicators. And what I mean by that is that other syndicators that they've invested with and they will never invest with again, but they come to us and they learn what we do and all the stuff that we have available for them. And the biggest key for us and being able to have those kind of donor investors, I would call them, from those donor syndicators, is communication. So we had this kind of, I'll wrap it up here and say that we had this workshop these last 2 days. And one of the last things, or the last thing that I left them with is this. I said, I want you to write down 1, 2, 3 on your piece of paper. 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to share with you the 3 things that will help you maintain your investors and allow you to get so many referrals. It's unbelievable, because this is the number one. These are the number one things that I see that take people away that people leave other syndicators, right? And they do it kind of without even talking to you, right? They just do this, right? So let me just write this on here real quick so you can see it. So right on your screen here, 1, 2, 3. So real quick, while I have you on here, of those, what do you think they are? There's 3 things. So just type in your chat box, see if you can figure out what those 3 things are, because these will definitely make or break anything that you do. These 3 things will definitely make or break your family relationships, your spousal relationships, your teenagers, your investors, your customers, your brokers, your sellers. I mean, these are 3 big things. First thing is, someone's already said it, communication. Okay. What's the second one? It's communication. The third one, communication. And I know some of you in here saying transparency. That's communication. Being transparent with somebody is all about communication. And when I say communication, it's not just picking up the phone call and talking to them. It's communicating to them via email, being responsive via email, being available to them via phone call or text message. And every single one of our investment offer memorandums that we have ever put out for our investors, it has all 3 of our managing partners on there. It has our phone numbers, our direct phone numbers on there, so they can have access to calls directly via phone or text, and our direct emails. So we want to make sure, even though as we're growing, we have, hopefully after this year, we'll have $1 billion in assets under management. We want to make sure our investors know that they need that lifeline. They can reach out to us, and we're responsive. We don't take weeks to respond to somebody. We're very, very responsive, and we try to instill that in all of our team members, so it's consistent across the board as well.
Wow. Talk about rapid growth. And so was 2016, you said you raised $4 million. So what was that? 12 million in assets under management, something like that?
Yep.
And now you're running to $1 billion. Dan, this was awesome as always, man. Thank you so much. And you got your event coming up in January. You want to talk about it real quick?
Sure. Yeah. So we have an event that we've been doing twice a year since early 2000s, January 2019. And so it's called the Multifamily Investor Nation Summit. You could actually just go to mfinsummit.com and find out more information there. We're still working on finalizing the speaker list there. So you probably will see the speaker list from our June event. But you can go there and register for the event. We'd love to have everybody there that's here and have them participate with that event as well. We usually have between about 700 to 800 people. Sometimes one of the events we had up to 900 people that have registered for that, and it's a great event. So, and hopefully we're going to have you speaking again. So,
I'm already scheduled. I'm noon
awesome,
on one of the days. I don't know which one it is, but it's going to happen.
I'm
It's on the
like me. I'm
calendar.
like you're speaking at that event. I'm like, yeah, I think so. I don't know what day or time, but it's as long as it's on my calendar, we're good, right?
Rock and roll, man. I wouldn't miss it for the world. Thank you so much, Dan.